Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, a historic day plays out on the world stage. The 20 remaining living hostages held by Hamas for the past 2 years freed today. Israel, in turn, releasing hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. The emotional reunions with their loved ones. The homecoming celebrations. And the tears for those who won't be coming back alive. How do these former hostages now reacclimate into the world from which they've been cut off for so long? Today's event's a defining moment for President Trump, addressing the Israeli parliament this morning to standing ovations and signing a ceasefire deal at a summit in Egypt attended by world leaders.
At long last, we have peace in the Middle East.
Notably absent from that summit, however, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What are the next steps in this delicate peace plan? The brawl that broke out on the field last night between the Chiefs and the Lions. What the players involved are saying today and what the NFL plans to do about it. Former coach Herm Edwards weighs in. And tributes pouring in for screen icon Diane Keaton, Oscar-winning star of some of the biggest hits of the last 5 decades. What her co-stars are saying about her passing and the legacy she leaves behind.
The truth is, it goes by fast, doesn't it?
Like the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
And thank you so much for streaming with us. I'm Gio Benitez. It is good to see you in for Linsey Davis. We're going to begin here with that historic signing of a ceasefire deal in Gaza. President Trump brokered an end to the war between Israel and Hamas alongside world leaders in Egypt, though the Israeli Prime Minister was notably absent. The president called today, quote, a new beginning for the entire Middle East. After 738 days, Hamas handed over 20 surviving Israeli hostages in a convoy of Red Cross vehicles. They crossed back home into Israel and into the arms of their loved ones. Finally, after 2 years apart, look at that right there. Joy for families who never lost faith that this day would come. And in exchange in Gaza, another long-awaited reunion, the return of some 2,000 Gazans. Some were serving sentences, others were detained by Israel without being charged. It is a defining moment on the world stage for President Trump, who spoke to Israel's parliament today.
And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
But there are cracks in this fragile peace agreement, and the text itself is largely symbolic. Israel's defense minister said Hamas has already failed to meet its commitment by releasing only 4 of 28 bodies today. And Israel has not fully withdrawn. That's another term of the 20-point plan. 67,000 Palestinian lives have been lost in this war, and much of Gaza is just unrecognizable. You can see it right there. But the president declared today that, quote, now the rebuilding begins. We have team coverage right now, but all of it spanning from Tel Aviv, Israel, to that peace summit there in Egypt. And we're going to begin here with Ian Pannell in Tel Aviv.
It's the moment Israel's been waiting for 2 years. All 20 living Israeli hostages who were being held in Gaza tonight home in Israel. In Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, tens of thousands gathering to watch the emotional moments unfold. Early this morning, Hamas releasing the hostages from captivity. Families speaking to their loved ones for the first time in 2 years. Some even before they were handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza. Before finally being reunited. Matan Zangauka's mother leapt into his arms. An embrace they've both been dreaming of. Guy Gilboa Dalal's family jumping for joy. Screaming his name again and again. Also among the 20 living, Eitan Horn, who was kidnapped from kibbutz Nir Oz while visiting his brother on October 7th. His brother Yair was released in February. A few days before the release, his father Itzik telling me he was still unsure if his son would actually come home. Today, his dream came true. The return is part of this fragile first phase of President Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza.
And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East.
This latest US brokered ceasefire deal called for the release of all 48 hostages, dead and alive, and for the release of 2,000 Palestinian prisoners jailed in Israel, some convicted, but others held without charge. Riding atop buses, winding through the throngs of cheering Gazans, former prisoners not waiting to get off, reaching through windows to tearfully hug loved ones. Others carried aloft through bombed-out streets. This deal also requiring Hamas to return the bodies of 28 people murdered during and after the October 7th attack, including 2 Americans, Omar Nutra and Itay Chen. But only 4 bodies were returned today. 1,200 people were killed on October 7th, 2023, many murdered in their homes. 251 were taken hostage. It was a day that shocked the world. The hostages were held deep underground in a vast network of tunnels. No light, little food or medicine, let alone any social contact. This Hamas video from August showing an emaciated Eviatar David, so weak he could barely talk or dig his own grave as Hamas forced him to do. While over their heads, the war raged and Gaza was reduced to rubble in a ferocious military campaign. So much of Gaza razed to the ground. Israel launching its biggest and longest offensive in its history. 2 years of bombing, killing 67,000 people, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. 90% of Gaza's 2 million residents have now been displaced. At least 250,000 people tracking back along the dusty coastal road to Gaza City last weekend, according to Gazan officials. The landscape unrecognizable. Mahmoud says his home is destroyed, telling our team, "I thought about not going back. Going back is better than staying here." And much-needed supplies finally flowing across the border to try to ease the pressing famine. For 2 years, there were ongoing weekly protests throughout Israel, pressuring Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government to end a war they saw as jeopardizing the hostages. The largest protest on Saturday, hundreds of thousands taking to the streets, celebrating the announcement that the hostages would finally be returning home. But the longer-term fate of this ceasefire remains unclear. Phase 2 of President Trump's peace plan already being discussed amongst world leaders at a peace summit today in Egypt.
Phase 2 has started. And, the phases are all a little bit mixed in with each other. They're going to start cleaning up. You look at Gaza, and it needs a lot of cleanup.
The reconstruction will require billions of dollars. Who will pay for it? And who will rebuild it? Still to be discussed. As is, who will actually govern this land and its citizens. But for today at least, joy for Palestinians and Israelis. Joy for Eviatar David held in that tunnel. Today, his hands making the shape of a heart.
And our thanks to Ian there. And President Trump declared today in Egypt that phase 2 of the ceasefire plan has officially begun. That entails the rebuilding and securing of Gaza, as well as putting new leadership in place there. The president calling it the historic dawn of a new Middle East, and going on to say this, listen.
The first steps to peace are always the hardest. And today we've taken them and we've put them all together. I intend to be a partner in securing a better future. We're going to be working, you're going to be working with the United States, and we're going to make sure that the Middle East is going to be a safe and secure place.
Let's go ahead and bring in Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce, who's there traveling with the president in Tel Aviv. Mary, it is good to see you. Thank you for being here. The president today in Egypt declared that the war is over. Does Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agree?
He does not, Gio, and that is a stark contrast there. The president repeatedly today saying the war is over. You heard him there in his remarks saying that the hard part is done. The president today really relishing the moment, celebrating this historic victory. And the president did play a pivotal role here, of course. He put tremendous pressure on Netanyahu to get this deal over the finish line. But, of course, there are massive hurdles still to come. And the president is arguing that this historic ceasefire, the return of the remaining hostages, means that the war is over. But realistically, there is a lot of work here still to be done. And right now, Israel and Hamas do not agree on the path forward, Gio.
And Mary, we've been talking about these different phases for this ceasefire. So what are the hurdles that must be cleared in phase 2 of the ceasefire plan?
There are so many questions ahead, Gio, and a lot of them simply logistical. You know, how are you going to rebuild Gaza? Who is going to govern it? Who is going to help secure it? That is going to be an incredibly expensive endeavor. The president keeps noting that wealthy nations are willing to help out with this. You know, will Hamas disarm? The president has said that he has been given guarantees. He has said that he believes this deal is going to hold. He says that no one wants to disappoint him, but there are very real questions about what comes forward. Of course, also what happens to the Palestinians in Gaza. We have seen the conditions there. They are simply horrific. How can they possibly live through the rebuilding process? Of course, the president's peace plan says that no one will be forced to leave, but there are simply just a lot of nuts and bolts questions that you have to get through before you even get to the stickier, bigger questions like whether or not you're going to have a Palestinian state. That is something that the president notably did not discuss today, even though his 20-point peace plan suggests that it could pave the way for Palestinian statehood, Gio.
All right, Mary Bruce, following it all from Tel Aviv, traveling with the president. Mary, thank you so much. We turn now to Egypt, where President Trump touted the agreement signed today as a turning point for the region. The actual text of the deal, it's largely symbolic, and it was not signed by representatives from Israel or Palestine. Here's James Longman right now in Egypt. James.
Hi, Gio. It was an extraordinary day today. First, seeing these hostage releases and then this summit in Egypt. I mean, there aren't many world leaders who can elicit such a warm response in the Israeli Knesset and then just an hour or so later have the same sort of response from Arab and Muslim leaders. Now, Donald Trump has a 20-point plan for peace in the Middle East. That's his objective. How we get there, that is still very unclear. Today was the first step in that process, getting Hamas to disarm. It is unclear what the mechanism there will be, if indeed Hamas will ever agree to disarm. And it's only when Hamas disarms that Israel says that they will formally end the war. Notably today, Donald Trump was the one to say the war has ended repeatedly. We didn't hear those words from Prime Minister Netanyahu, nor did we hear those words in a statement from Hamas. Who will rebuild Gaza? Who will secure Gaza? Who will govern Gaza? All of these are unknowns. Yes, there's an administration which is planned, some kind of international committee and a board of peace. But what role will Palestinians have in their own future? Again, all of this very unclear. And can there ever be a Palestinian state? That is the question that has plagued this war for the last 2 years and this region for decades. Now, that is a question that Donald Trump hopes to answer, but for the moment, it is the first step to a longer lasting peace. Gio? That is a major question, James Longman. Thank you for your reporting there in Egypt. Let's go ahead and dig in to where we go from here with Mick Mulroy. He's ABC News national security and defense analyst. Mick, thank you so much for being here. So whether it's truly a peace deal or merely a pause in the violence, what immediate next steps need to happen to stabilize Gaza and really life for Palestinians?
So, Gio, the first step is underway. So that is a dramatic increase of the humanitarian assistance going into Gaza. Under the 20-point plan, it goes back to the pre-war amount, so 600 trucks per day. And that needs to be distributed across Gaza because you can see the Palestinians are spreading out and going back to the north. Very important, and winter is coming. Also important. The second part is going to be this international stabilization force, something that can actually fill the vacuum of the IDF as they withdraw to what they're calling the yellow line, and then the red line, and then the security buffer, and then eventually out of Gaza, if this goes according to plan. Something needs to replace the vacuum that the IDF is leaving. That's this international stabilization force composed of potentially Indonesian forces, Egyptian forces, Jordanian forces, but it needs to happen quickly. They need to be trained, they need to be positioned, and this needs to happen almost simultaneous with everything else going on.
Well, Mick, you've been talking about that stabilization force. So what exactly would that force do?
So under the plan, they have a lot of tasks. They are supposed to ensure that Hamas demilitarizes, so disarms himself. They are supposed to train the Palestinian security force that would replace them. They also were supposed to destroy some of these tunnels that we just saw that haven't been destroyed by the IDF. So they would have many missions on top of just securing the people of Gaza in everyday life. So it's incredibly important that it happens. We need the stabilization force, but it's unclear now how quickly that can come together.
So what role will the United States play here in that transitional governance and those stabilization efforts you're talking about?
So the U.S. military has already deployed around 200 soldiers to Israel. They're not going into Gaza, but they can help coordinate, plan, and basically be the communications hub, if you will, for this stabilization force. Very important. The other part is there's going to be a governance board, this peace board, if you will. It's going to be composed of Palestinian, what they call technocrats, so people who really know certain parts of society, whether it's building infrastructure, healthcare, et cetera. But it's going to be mentored by outside international group. And of course, President Trump's going to be the head of this peace board. So it's a combination of two that hopefully, under the plan, will eventually go to a full Palestinian governance. At the same time, they have a full Palestinian security force that would, of course, replace the International Stabilization Force.
And again, this is a 20-point plan there, so a lot of work left to do. Mick Mulroy, thank you so much for all of your insight. And we go back to the U.S. here now because we have a deadly nor'easter that is slamming the Northeast. Rain and winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour from the Carolinas all the way to New York into New England. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is tracking the storm. But first, we're going to go over to Matt Rivers with more on its impact so far.
Tonight, at least one dead as a powerful nor'easter pounds the coast with monster waves, powerful winds, and torrential rain. Streets swamped from Ocean City, Maryland to the Jersey Shore.
This storm absolutely battering the beach here in Ocean Grove. You can see these waves coming ashore behind me. Incredibly intense winds combined with high tide, making for dangerous conditions up and down the coast.
In New York City, a 76-year-old woman killed after a wind gust blew a solar panel off a carport and sent it sailing in Brooklyn. Winds gusting over 50 miles an hour on New York's Long Island, snapping massive trees. Hundreds of flights canceled, thousands delayed across the Northeast. And as the system slowly spins off the East Coast, effects still being felt from Massachusetts to the Carolinas. Meanwhile, in the West, a separate system brought on by remnants of Hurricane Priscilla. First responders in Tucson using a ladder truck to save this driver. In Maricopa County, using a helicopter to rescue another driver trapped by floodwaters. A new system moving into the West tonight.
And Gio, the state of emergency is still in place here in New Jersey, so we're going to be dealing with the effects of this storm for some time. You can see the high winds, rough seas, and the continued threat of coastal flooding with each new high tide. Gio.
And our thanks to Matt Rivers there. Let's get right to ABC's chief meteorologist, Ginger Z, who's tracking the storm. Ginger.
Gio, on this blustery night, we've heard of high water rescues along the Jersey Shore at Seabright, for example, in just the last couple hours, because this low has barely moved since I did GMA with you this morning. It was been pushing water against the coast all day and right off of Rehoboth Beach or Atlantic City between the two. So those coastal flood warnings still exist in North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and all the way up through Connecticut, Rhode Island, and even up to those high surf advisories in Maine. Coastal New Hampshire has it, Massachusetts too. This goes through tonight, and then things will really relax by tomorrow when that low moves far east of us. But before that happens, we're going to still easily have gusts of 30 to 40 miles per hour along the coast. I think we'll stop seeing the impacts to airports by tomorrow morning, and then by tomorrow night, like I said, it's gone. But There's a new storm, and it's coming along the coast of California, and that one has brought the first base of snow to Snoqualmie Pass, the earliest since 2019 there. And now winter storm warnings down the spine of Sierra Nevada, 1 to 3 feet of snow. Wind advisories from Nevada and Utah, Arizona, back through California. But that flood watch, Gio, where we have those burn scars from recent wildfires, that's what we've got our eye on overnight tonight into early tomorrow. Some of those places could easily see 1 to even up to 3 inches of rain. When that falls on that land that has had that scar from a wildfire, it can have debris flows and flash flooding really quickly. Gio.
All right, a lot to watch for there. We know that you're going to stay on top of it. We'll see you on GMA in the morning, Ginger. Thank you. And tonight, the government shutdown is adding more pressure to the families of federal workers who are seeing shrinking paychecks about to disappear. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson warns that the U.S. is barreling towards the longest shutdown in American history. Here's our Rachel Scott.
Tonight, as the government shutdown heads into its third week, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson today with a stark warning.
We're barreling toward one of the longest shutdowns in American history.
The longest shutdown was during the first Trump administration and lasted 35 days. The House Speaker said Democrats can end the shutdown tomorrow, calling their hard line on extending the Obamacare subsidies to keep healthcare costs for millions from rising a boondoggle. Democratic leadership not budging.
People are facing these dramatically increased premiums, co-pays, and deductibles because of the Republicans' continued refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
Millions of federal workers have now received their last paycheck, and the White House using the shutdown to fire more than 4,000 federal workers, including many inside the Department of Education, where sources say the special education staff has been decimated. Jackie Castillo-Blaber, a mother of 2 children with disabilities, called the cuts a gut punch.
Every minute counts for these kids, and they already have gaps, and the delay in services makes those gaps become impossible hurdles for them.
I asked Speaker Johnson,
are you comfortable with those cuts?
Remember, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats turned off the funding for all these things that everybody cares about. And so the executive branch, the Office of Management and Budget, has to determine what are the most efficient and effective programs.
And Rachel Scott joins us now from the White House. Rachel, some concerning updates when it comes to the potential impact the shutdown could have on SNAP benefits.
Yes, Gio, and SNAP is federal food assistance that 42 million American families that are low income rely on every single week to put food on the table for their families. Well, the acting head of the program says that they have enough money to keep the program going until the end of October. But after that, their funds are going to run dry. And so this is going to put some added pressure on lawmakers to reach a deal. But right now, the shutdown has no end in sight.
And Rachel, while we have you here, we're also learning that the Trump administration is working to reverse some of those accidental firings.
Yes, Gio. So we are learning that the Trump administration is now working to rehire about 130 staff members from the CDC who were let go by mistake. Now, sources tell us that some of these staff and employees were working on responding to the outbreaks of Ebola in Africa, the measles outbreak here in the United States. A federal health official tells us that they were let go by mistake due to a coding error and will now be rehired, Gio.
All right, Rachel Scott there at the White House. Thank you for your reporting. Meanwhile, a small plane crashed down on an interstate in Dartmouth, Massachusetts today. The plane hit a car and even closed the highway. 2 people on board were killed. Take a look. Tonight, the NTSB is investigating this fiery crash on a major Massachusetts interstate.
We have a confirmed plane crash with possible injuries, active fire, and jet fuel spilled on the 195-19, exit ramp 19.
You can see jet fuel and debris on fire stretching across the highway. All lines of traffic shut down for hours. The crash coming as that nor'easter brought strong winds up to 30 miles per hour and rain to Massachusetts. The single-engine plane crashing shortly after takeoff at around 8 a.m. from New Bedford Regional Airport. At least 2 people on board were killed. The plane striking this car on the median, that driver taken to a nearby hospital.
She's okay. Traumatized, but okay. Thank God she's okay.
And we are hearing that that driver has non-life-threatening injuries, so we are thinking of her right now. Meanwhile, police in Philadelphia are asking for the public's help in locating a missing 23-year-old whose disappearance is now being investigated as a homicide. Kata Scott was last seen on October 4th during her overnight shift at a nursing home in Philadelphia. Police say she told friends and family that she was being harassed by an unknown person before her disappearance. Her mother told ABC affiliate WPVI that she never came home after her shift, and all her calls went straight to voicemail. We will keep following that story. Meanwhile, a new report found that American consumers are largely feeling the pain from President Trump's tariffs and will absorb at least 55% of the cost by the end of the year. The Goldman Sachs analysis shows that American consumers could end up paying even more next year, warning that country-specific tariffs like those imposed on China could increase the burden on consumers to 70%. The White House responded that this is a period of transition and said, quote, the cost of tariffs will ultimately be borne by foreign exporters. Eccentric, original, iconic. Oscar-winning actress Diane Keaton undoubtedly leaves behind a unique legacy that is, like she was, one of a kind. We are learning more details now about her health. A source telling People magazine that Keaton's health took a sharp turn in recent months and she declined very suddenly. Keaton's friend and director Nancy Myers remembered Keaton on social media, saying, "We have lost a giant, a brilliant actress who time and again laid herself bare to tell our stories." Keaton enjoyed a career vibrant with creativity and a life lived on her own terms. And our Chris Connolly has her story now.
Diane Keaton's performance in the title role of Annie Hall made her a national sensation, a Best Actress Oscar winner, and a movie star evermore.
Oh, well, la-di-da, la-di-da, la-la.
Fresh and funny and fascinating, her look sparking a major fashion trend of the 1970s. She'd also play Kay Adams, the eventual spouse to Al Pacino's Michael Corleone.
You say you love me, and then you talk about allowing me to leave.
Keaton also teaming with star and director Warren Beatty for the 1981 epic Reds.
Portland, come to New York. You ought to be in New York.
Thank you very much. I'll remember that.
What?
I'll remember your advice.
But comedy remained her first love, where her on-screen glow and spontaneity shined.
Just, take care of it. It's very agreeable.
Her work with writer, producer, and eventually director Nancy Myers spun rom-com gold. 1987's Baby Boom saw Keaton's big city executive pushed over the edge by life as a single parent in the country.
I just want to turn on the faucet and have water. I don't want to know where it's coming from.
1991's Father of the Bride and its sequel saw Keaton alongside Steve Martin, and in 2003 with Jack Nicholson in Something's Gotta Give. The post-theatrical popularity of her mid-career movies,
You don't own me.
like her bankability-boosting hit The First Wives Club with Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn, saw Keaton earning the affection of younger fans, something she discussed with our Will Reeve back in 2022.
There's something about you that transcends generations.
I don't feel like I've transcended anything particularly, except that I've been very fortunate to have many opportunities that came my way.
On and off screen, Keaton became a feminist icon. Integrity and independence, a hallmark of her personal style and sensibility. As a single parent, she would adopt and raise 2 children.
I didn't choose to get married. I
didn't need to get married.
And the people that I was with, it was best that we were not married. I think I did the right thing.
Her co-stars remembering her impact. Keaton's First Wives Club colleague Bette Midler calling her brilliant, beautiful, extraordinary. Goldie Hawn adding, "You stole the hearts of the world and shared your genius with millions."
Seems like old times.
Diane Keaton's death at the age of 79 announced Saturday, leaving behind work that will be fondly remembered.
I need you to do me a favor and try not to be so perfect. All right?
Just as she will always be.
Here with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, what an incredible woman. Our thanks to Chris Connolly. Coming up here on Prime, the remaining living Israeli hostages reunited with their loved ones after more than 2 years apart. How do they reacclimate into the world from which they've been cut off from for so long? We're going to look at that. Also, Gaza will now turn to rebuilding, what the future could look like for Palestinians when we come back here on ABC News Live Prime. And welcome back to Prime. As the Israeli hostages are reunited with their loved ones, the road to recovery, it's going to be a challenge, a big challenge, just as the journey was to getting them home. For more on this, we're joined now by Kieran Ramsey, who worked to resolve hostage situations with the U.S. government for decades, before now joining Global Reach, which helps bring Americans held abroad home. Kieran, it is so good to see you. Thank you for joining us here on Prime. How was this ceasefire negotiation different from the ones that we'd seen previously?
Well, clearly, as we can see right now, the prime consideration, the first consideration in the negotiations that resulted in this morning was the hostages. Sadly, unfortunately, that has not been the case before for a variety of reasons, but it was the hostages alone that was the primary consideration that led to their release this morning.
And I think when you see these hostages and you think about, okay, they've been held hostage now for over 2 years, you start thinking about their medical attention, what they may need from medical professionals. So what do those steps look like after so many years?
So they have been held captive now for 737 days in some of the most horrific conditions that you could ever imagine, being held in tunnels and caves and basements. So it really starts with emergency medical care. We already have heard long since this started of physical abuse, outright torture, of humiliation, psychological torture, of malnutrition, of starvation, really. So the medical evaluation is really emergency medical evaluation to start caring for these people in a physical sense. And we have to remember, there were people that were severely injured on October 7th when they were taken captive. We know that they did not get the world's best medical care as they entered captivity. So those conditions have worsened, let alone any normal health conditions that they might have had before going into captivity certainly could have worsened. You add to that things like nutrition. These folks have, as I said before, faced starvation. And we know from releases in previous cases and unrelated cases where the hostages want nothing more than to go eat their favorite food. But if they do, they'll end up back in the emergency room because their bodies just can't process it.
Do we know what support Israel is offering right now to these freed hostages?
So the Israeli system is very similar to the American system with some differences, without a doubt. The American system is based off the U.S. military system of caring for prisoners of war. And it really focuses on emergency medical care, psychological care, nutrition. The Israeli system is under the Hostages and Missing Persons Directive, which is a multi-agency effort. It falls directly under the Prime Minister's office. And they use the Rabin Medical Center and Sheba Medical Center to treat these folks to make sure that they get the immediate care they need, because this is a long road to healing and recovery.
A long road indeed. Kieran Ramsey of Global Reach. Kieran, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And coming up here on Prime, we're going to look at what's at stake for the future of Gaza, not devastated by years of war and a humanitarian crisis, or now devastated, we should say, how Palestinians may look to rebuild. And back in the U.S., more than 150 unvaccinated children are under quarantine, the outbreak leading officials to take extra precautions. You're watching Prime on ABC News Live. And welcome back. We're continuing our coverage here of the new ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas, with freed Israeli hostages returning to Israel and detained Palestinians returning to Gaza and the West Bank. But many questions remain now about what comes next, especially how to rebuild Gaza following the devastation of 2 years of war. We're going to learn more in a bit here about how humanitarian organizations plan to help Palestinians going forward. But first, let's take a look at what it would look like to rebuild Gaza by the numbers. A World Bank Bank, UN, and EU joint assessment from February said that an estimated $53.2 billion over 10 years would be needed to reconstruct Gaza and the West Bank. The assessment said that $20 billion would be needed in the next 3 years alone. The biggest cost was rebuilding housing, which the report said would require more than $15 billion. The UN Satellite Center estimates that 83% of all structures in Gaza City have now been damaged. And in September, the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization said that more than 98% of Gaza's cropland was unusable. Meanwhile, rebuilding Gaza's healthcare system, it'll cost more than $7 billion, according to the World Health Organization, which said this month that just 14 of Gaza's 36 hospitals were still at least partially functioning. Aside from the time, money, and human capital required to rebuild the Gaza Strip, those who hold the purse strings, be they governments, NGOs, or private investors, will want to make sure that the lives and livelihoods of millions of Palestinians are not destroyed again. So joining us now is Sean Carroll, the president and CEO of ANERA. That's an organization that for more than 50 years has assisted in providing humanitarian and development assistance to Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Mr. Carroll, we so appreciate your time here. The scope of work that the organizations like ANERA seek to accomplish, really, it's just so daunting. Where do you even begin?
Well, thanks, Gio, for having me on. You're right; they're daunting, but we begin with Palestinians and what they want and how they see rebuilding. And I can talk about our own staff, ANERA's staff in Gaza. All of our staff are Palestinians that live and work in the communities they're from, and some of them are already looking to rebuild. I was in Gaza last December, so before this ceasefire, before the prior ceasefire of January and February, and I was amazed to see some people rebuilding already, building a warehouse, rebuilding a sweet shop in Gaza City. So people talk often about the resilience of Palestinians, and particularly those in Gaza, and I think it's the resourcefulness and the steadfastness and the energy and the perseverance. They don't want to go anywhere. They want to stay and they want to rebuild.
How does an organization like ANERA help to restart Palestinian businesses, especially agriculture, that of course sustain any society?
Yeah, well, we are looking to provide small loans to micro and small and medium enterprises in Gaza. There are hundreds or thousands that have been destroyed or damaged or had to stop due to the conflict. Many of those will get going on their own or through funds from families, but some of them will need some outside support, and we will work with large financial institutions and microfinance institutions that already exist and have operated in the past. ANERA in the past has provided microloans to businesses in Gaza, and we'll get back to doing that. That's going to be key, that capital, that financial support. A lot of businesses, though, know exactly what they were doing and know how to run a successful business. And it's really just a question of them getting back on their feet, building back, literally in many cases, of course, building back the physical infrastructure that will be needed. It'll be everyone doing everything they can to support the chance of a full recovery and reconstruction and rebuilding of lives really torn asunder.
And Sean, before you leave us, I know that one issue that's very important to you is the issue of the West Bank. Even more Palestinians live there than the Gaza Strip.
That's right. More than 3 million in the West Bank. And we're seeing a lot of the same violence and destruction. Some refugee camps in northern West Bank have been completely destroyed. The violence has increased, access, the roads are cut off. The economy is severely hindered as well. Access between North and Central and South West Bank is difficult. The amount of time it takes to get places. So unfortunately, we're delivering a lot of emergency humanitarian aid in West Bank as well. And as we look at the ceasefire and everyone's overjoyed that the war in Gaza has ended, we see some hope on the horizon. We can't only talk about Gaza. We have to talk about the West Bank and the fact that there needs to be a political resolve towards solving a longstanding conflict and a need for Palestinian aspirations in the West Bank and all over the Palestinian territories, Palestine, to be realized.
All right, Sean Carroll, President and CEO of ANERA, one of the many organizations trying to help there in Gaza. Sir, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And coming up here on ABC News Live Prime, why more than 150 students from 2 South Carolina schools now have to quarantine for the next few weeks. And we get into all the NFL action from Week 6, including a violent ending to that final game of the night. We'll be right back. You're watching Prime on ABC News Live. Illinois leaders make a push outside of an ICE facility. Deputies make a harrowing rescue on a hiking trail, and the surprising way a stolen artifact made its way back to a museum 50 years later. These stories and more in tonight's rundown. Illinois House Speaker Emanuel Chris Welch and other leaders held a news conference outside an ICE facility in Broadview, Illinois.
Mr. Trump, tear down this fence now. Tear it down. Tear down this symbol of division. Tear down this symbol of destruction.
Judge ruled last week that the fencing must come down by Tuesday. Bulldozers were already in position to potentially begin taking the fencing down. At least 153 unvaccinated students from 2 schools in South Carolina are under quarantine for 21 days due to measles exposures. The outbreak has grown to at least 8 measles cases, with a total of 11 cases reported overall in the state this year. The U.S. has reported more than 1,500 measles cases this year, the highest number since 1992. That's according to the latest numbers from the CDC. Video released by Arizona deputies show their rescue of an injured dog on a hiking trail. You see them swooping in by helicopter and rescuing a dog who had fallen in the wilderness and couldn't walk out. The dog was camping in the wild with his owner when he was seriously injured near a prominent peak in the Superstition Mountains. The video shows officials hoisting the dog to safety using a special canine harness. A German woman has returned a long-lost artifact more than 50 years after she took it in the first place. The stolen segment from an ancient Greek pillar was originally taken back in the 1960s, but given back just recently. Greek officials praised the woman for returning the lost item and added, "It is never too late to do the right thing." Taylor Swift is giving fans a behind-the-scenes look at her record-breaking Eras tour. Disney Plus will air a 6-part docuseries. It's called The End of an Era, giving fans a look at the inner workings of the tour that saw Swift perform in sold-out stadiums around the world. Well, the first 2 episodes of the docuseries will premiere on Disney Plus on December 12th, with 2 episodes airing weekly for the next 2 weeks. Also on December 12th, Taylor Swift The Eras Tour, the final show, will premiere on Disney Plus, showing a full concert film of Swift's final tour stop. And finally, it's that time of the year, time for the Safeway World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off. Brandon Dawson won this year's contest with a gigantic pumpkin weighing in at 2,346 pounds. The grand prize total is a whopping $9 per pound, so this year's winner just grew about $21,000 richer. That is one big pumpkin. Turning now to the gridiron, Week 6 of the NFL season wraps up with 2 Monday Night Football games. Yesterday's action ended in a fury with a brawl between members of the Chiefs and the Lions. Take a look at this. Oof, all right. Detroit Lions defensive back Brian Branch, who you saw there in the middle of that, he was suspended for 1 game today. Joining us now is our buddy, ESPN analyst and former NFL head coach, Herm Edwards. Coach, it is good to see you. We usually see you on GMA Sunday. It's good to see you here on a Monday night.
Thank you, my friend. That's an unfortunate incident that took place with the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. Generally, these NFL players understand that it's very, very important. That sportsmanship is part of how we conduct ourselves as football players, and we are the cream of the crop when you say you get to the NFL, and others view us, and it's unfortunate. And I think the league stepped in and did the right thing. He's suspended for a week. I think his head coach went before the media and spoke on the incident and saying we don't condone this, and the player apologized as well.
Well, you said it right there. Sportsmanship. It is so important. This brawl came after the Chiefs pulled off an impressive win, right? Bouncing back after a tough loss to the Jaguars. So could this game get them back on track now?
Well, I think this was an important game. You know, Detroit has gone in there and beaten them, and they met a physical team with physicalness of their own. The Chiefs' intentions were, we're going to run the football, we're going to match their physicality, and they did do that. They took it to the Detroit Lions, and it was a really big win for the Chiefs in the fact that they made a statement to let everybody know the Chiefs are back, and they are. They're back.
Yeah, they're back. All right. Another post-game incident involved the Dolphins, who fell to 1-5. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, he called out team leadership and accused teammates of missing or being late to players-only meetings. So how big of an issue do you think his remarks are going to cause here?
Well, I think this team is really trying to find themselves, as far as leadership goes. And I think his intentions were good. The things he said made a lot of sense, but this is something that you keep in-house. This doesn't leave the locker room. There's a saying in the National Football League: what we say here, what we do here, stays here when we leave here. And that's one of those situations where the intentions were good, but the audience that he spoke to was the wrong audience, to be quite honest.
Oh, yeah, if it stays there, absolutely. All right, so as we speak right now, we still have 2 games left this Monday night. So we got the Bills visiting the Falcons. We got the Bears facing the Commanders. What do you think? What's going to happen?
Well, it's already, both teams scored on the first possession when you think about Atlanta and the Buffalo Bills. Both these teams are really good, and they're physical. Both of them can run the football. They started off running the game, both running. And I think at the end, if the Buffalo Bills have the ball at the end of the game where they need to win, I'm betting on Josh Allen.
All right. Well, and when we're looking at the Bears and the Commanders yesterday on GMA, you said you're looking at the Commanders. You think they're going to win. On GMA3, Greeny told me he thinks it's going to be the Bears.
Well, look, the Caleb Williams has something to prove. This is the new improved in Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson now. This offense is entirely different. That's actually the Detroit Lions offense. I mean, there's similar things that they do in their offense. And you've watched Caleb Williams, all of a sudden, a guy that took 68 sacks last year because he held on to the ball, trying to force plays and make plays. Ball's out of his hand. I mean, he looks like an entirely different quarterback. Remember, both these guys were picked 1 and 2 coming out of college. Jaden Daniels had a great year last year. Caleb Williams, not so much. So this is one of those games that is kind of personal.
All right, we'll see what happens, and we'll tune in for Who's with Herm on GMA next Sunday. We'll see what happened there. Coach Herm Edwards, we appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that is our show for tonight on this very critical night. I'm Gio Benitez. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Have a good night.